The Miss Marvel 6-episode miniseries is going to start releasing episodes on June 8th on the Disney Plus channel, and that's super exciting. But I have to tell you, when the Miss Marvel comic book saga first really debuted years ago, it sent the world into a frenzy because someone who looked like Kamala Khan, let alone worshipped like she did, has never headlined their own comic book series before. This was a huge step for Marvel to take years ago, and it's super exciting that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to not just include Kamala Khan in their superhero roster, but that she's going to be a major player in the history of the MCU moving forward, even long after the Miss Marvel miniseries is over and the subsequent movie, The Marvels, comes and goes too. But if you're wondering about Miss Marvel's faith and how it might play into things in the MCU, in this video, we're going to examine exactly that. So, welcome back to the Mama Saga, where this Marvel-loving mama is a mother by day, but breaks down comic book sagas, movies, and shows like Miss Marvel by night. Now, first things first, when it comes to Miss Marvel, you may be asking, what is Miss Marvel's faith? Kamala Khan is a Pakistani American who is Muslim. Adherents of Islam are called Muslims, and the word Islam itself means submission to the will of God. The fundamental belief of Islam is that there is only one God. It is a monotheistic faith, therefore, and God is called Allah and his prophet is Muhammad. The religious text of Islam is the Quran, and that text is considered by Muslims to be the direct word of the God of Abraham. Again, Allah. Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, according to more recent articles published in CNN and U.S. News and World Report. Now, when it comes to the religious leadership in Kamala Khan's life, you should know that Islam, like Judaism, does not have clergy, such as priests, who mediate between God and his followers. Instead, the individual who leads an Islamic worship service is called Imam, and Kamala Khan's Imam in the comic book saga, in the Earth 616 version of it anyway, is Sheikh Abdullah, an older man in whom Kamala confides, and he provides her with warm comfort and support throughout her superhero journey. Kamala's mosque is the Islamic Masjid of Jersey City, in which the comic book saga of Miss Marvel was located at the corner of West Side Avenue and Communipaw Avenue. Not only does Kamala and her family worship there, but her childhood best friend Nakia Bahdir does as well. I think that the comic book saga was very tasteful in how it had the reader connect with Kamala Khan first, the character, the human being, and then the finer details can be important, color, religion, that sort of thing. If you go about it in reverse, it can be a very two-dimensional thing, very ham-fisted and insensitive, and today it's all about inclusivity, and part of the excitement about the comic and now the Disney Plus series is that someone like the Kamala Khan version of Miss Marvel is allowed to shine her unique light and be seen for it. I love that. We don't need more stereotypical tropes in comics or the MCU or anywhere else. That said, you may be asking, how will Miss Marvel's faith factor into the MCU? Kamala's faith factors in off the jump for sure. Up front, let me say that in the MCU, Sheikh Abdullah will be a recurring character in the Miss Marvel Disney Plus miniseries. And in the trailer, he can be seen speaking with Kamala, where he reassures her that good is not something you are, it is something you do. You can see from another moment in the trailer that Kamala is in a mosque and prayerful. Clearly, she's going to be observant in her faith. She's going to be connected to her Imam as a mentor, and I bet you her father, in a faith-filled way, impacts her in the series as well. What do I mean? In the comic book saga of Miss Marvel, there's a quote from the Quran that Kamala's father, Yusuf Khan, had read to her in the past, which says, whoever kills one person, it is as if he has killed all of mankind. And whoever saves one person, it is as if he has saved all of mankind. This is a faith-filled quote, sure, but it's more than that to Kamala, thanks to her connection to both her father and their jointly held faith. And it all factors into her journey into embracing her role as Miss Marvel. You see, in the comics, it's this quote that prompted Kamala to save someone once she'd first become Miss Marvel. Well, looking as she initially did, more like the blonde-haired Carol Danvers version of Captain Marvel. But not long afterwards, Kamala learned how to be more comfortable in her own skin, showing up as her own brown-skinned, dark-haired self in the Miss Marvel gear from then on out, which is also its own strong kind of beautiful. But this someone that I mentioned earlier that Kamala saved wasn't just anyone. It was her bully at school, Zoe Zimmer. Zoe wasn't someone who deserved salvation in the comics once her life was in danger, but she received salvation anyway through Miss Marvel having rescued her, with the impetus of that rescue coming from what is taught in the Holy Quran and what it meant not just to Yusuf, but to his daughter Kamala as well, in terms of how important it is to do good to save a life. If it wasn't for Kamala's strong faith and the support of her father and her imam, Kamala wouldn't likely have become the awesome, strong, spirited superhero that she now is in the Marvel comic universe. And I'm sure that's all going to play very strongly into what happens in the MCU version of her too. I would be very surprised if by the end of the 6th and final episode of the Miss Marvel miniseries, we did not see the whole faith-fueled leap of faith that Kamala took in the comics to come to pass in the Disney Plus series. Perhaps it's going to be very closely adapted from Miss Marvel's comic book origin story. Kamala says in the Miss Marvel trailer, it's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who saved the world. That's a fantasy too. However, she's not only going to have her fantasy become reality in this Disney Plus series, she's very likely going to embrace her place in this world as a brown girl who's a Pakistani American, who's a Muslim, who's a superhero. Her faith, literally and figuratively, should elevate her to a place of belief and confidence like she's seemingly at the end of the trailer when she's asked, "Do you know what you are?" Because that is when she says breathlessly, "I'm a superhero." Yes, she is in all of her awesome glory, and I cannot wait to see it all unfold in the Miss Marvel miniseries. How about you? Let me know in the comments below. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe to the Mama Saga for more comic book saga breakdowns, Salty Mama style. Thanks for watching. Take care.